The laughter started softly at first, the kind that hides behind raised hands and turned shoulders, but it grew louder as the night wore on, echoing through the bright white corridors of the emergency room where exhaustion mixed with ego and judgment. The new nurse stood at the edge of the chaos, her posture calm, her eyes steady, while around her seasoned staff whispered and smirked, convinced she was another fragile hire who wouldn't last a month. None of them noticed how her hands never shook, how she watched every monitor with quiet precision, or how the scars on her forearms hinted at a life lived far beyond these walls. And none of them could have imagined that before this shift ended, a Navy helicopter would descend from the sky, shaking the hospital to its foundations, asking for her by name. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of quiet strength, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel Bright Hearts. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. She had arrived 3 weeks earlier with a file so thin it raised eyebrows, transferring in from another state, choosing night shifts in the ER where pressure was constant and mistakes were unforgiving. Her uniform was always neatly pressed, her hair tied back simply, her movements efficient but unremarkable to anyone not paying close attention. The senior nurses, hardened by years of trauma and short staffing, had learned to protect themselves with sarcasm and skepticism. They laughed when she volunteered for the toughest assignments, assuming it was naivety. They laughed when she stayed late without complaint, assuming desperation. And they laughed when she asked to observe complex procedures, assuming ambition without ability. What they didn't laugh about, though they never admitted it aloud, was how patients seemed calmer when she was nearby, how vit. As the hours dragged toward dawn, exhaustion settled in like a heavy fog. The ER staff leaned on muscle memory, cutting corners where they could, trusting experience to carry them through. That was when a critical patient arrived, one whose injuries were complex and rapidly deteriorating. The room filled with tension as the team struggled to stabilize him, protocols overlapping, decisions colliding. In the confusion, something subtle shifted. The new nurse noticed a pattern others missed, a detail buried in the data that pointed to a hidden complication. She adjusted her approach instinctively, guided by training that hadn't come from textbooks alone. The patient responded, just enough to buy precious time. Some of the laughter faded then, replaced by uneasy silence, but pride kept anyone from acknowledging what had just happened. Minutes later, the low, distant thrum of rotor blades began to vibrate through the walls, so faint at first it felt like imagination. As it grew louder, heads turned toward the ceiling, confusion rippling through the department. Helicopters were not unusual for trauma centers, but this one felt different. The sound was deliberate, controlled, and it drew closer until the entire building seemed to hum with it. Nurses and doctors spilled toward windows and doors, watching as a Navy helicopter descended onto the hospital roof with surgical precision, its presence commanding instant attention. The ER fell into stunned silence, the earlier laughter now a memory that felt dangerously out of place. Uniformed personnel moved quickly through secured doors, their expressions focused, their urgency unmistakable. They spoke with hospital administration, credentials flashed, protocols activated. Word spread in hushed fragments that a high-priority medical evacuation was underway, that time was critical, that they needed someone specific. When the name was spoken, it cut through the air like a blade, stopping conversations mid-breath. It was her name.